Hey guys, halfclickup here. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to my Yamaha FZ6R mods and maintenance tutorial series. A quick recap on what has led us to today is we performed our first valve adjustment on our 2009 Yamaha FZ6R at 58,000 miles. That project went fine. Unfortunately, days later the bike developed a puff of smoke on startup, which is indicative that we have valve seal failures. A quick investigation of the spark plugs revealed that number 4 was indeed stained brown, indicating that oil has been getting into the combustion chamber at cylinder 4. Also, we have visually verified that the exhaust port for number 4 is wet with oil. So we adjusted 7 valves in that valve adjustment, and so we went ahead and ordered 7 valve seals. I figured, why limit ourselves to fixing problems in number 4 when there's the potential that the other 6 or 5, or we just don't know. But let's prevent the other valves from becoming an issue and go ahead and replace all 7 of them that we associated with an adjustment with the valve clearances. And just real quick, here are the items you are going to need to perform this job. Specialty tools. First off, you're going to need a valve spring compressor, and these are about $15 to $20 on eBay. It's just a cheap powdered metal tool, but I figure motorcycle valve springs are not that stout, so it should work just fine. Again, cheap valve spring compressing tool. I ordered the Motion Pro 4mm valve seal installation tool. Basically, the valve seal slides over this 4mm bore, and you hold the tool and it allows you to properly press the valve onto the valve valve seal onto the valve seat. And also you're going to need your actual valve seals. Again, we adjusted 7 valves, so I ordered 7 seals to go ahead and replace all valve seals associated with all clearance adjustments we made, again to avoid more problems in the future. Now, the last thing you'll obviously need is a Yamaha FZ6R head gasket. So there you go. Head gasket part number, Motion Pro tool number, and your valve seal number. Now, as for teardown, the bike is in the current condition of teardown that it would be if you were just doing a valve adjustment. So if you need instruction on how to tear down the bike to the head like this, go ahead and reference my 4-part series on the actual valve adjustment job, and you'll find that every step required to tear down the bike to this stage will be followed step by step using the Yamaha FZ6R shop manual, and so you can go ahead and reference that series as well. Alright, so real quick we can talk about some challenges and unknowns. First primary challenge is going to be the fact that these head bolts are hidden inside the bike's frame. The only way to get to these is through a fancy construction of extensions. Little 1/4-inch extensions, which I have verified I will be able to fit in there. It's very tight, however, and even tighter than that is the other one, which you probably can't make out, but it's in there. Again, we're going to go from the top here and get to those bolts accordingly. Also on the other side we have the same situation, bigger bolts here. You got this one, there's also this one right here. These should be easier to get to. We will find out soon enough. And another potential complication is we don't actually know 100% that this head will come out of this frame without the engine being removed. It's one of those things you just cross your fingers and hope for when you get in. Once you dive into this thing. I figure worst case scenario, if I cannot turn this head around and pull it out here, we're going to have to come down here and remove the entire radiator and possibly pull it out through the bottom. So that's our two options here for removal. Obviously, we are going to attempt removing from the top first. So here's our initial blowout diagram for removing the cylinder head. And things to pay attention to, again guys, when it comes to the service manual, there's always little tricks and tips hidden throughout this thing. And you also want to pay attention to things you need to replace. We do have a new coolant temperature sensor gasket that we're going to put in. Pay attention here. You're going to have to coat your bolts in engine oil when you put them back together. Different things like that. Obviously you need a new head gasket. But also, big thing here, the big trick to this job is going to be following the triple stage torquing of these bolts. All right, you see it details the first stage, then the second stage, then the third stage. We'll get more into that in detail here in a little while when we're putting the thing back on, but something you definitely want to pay attention to. Furthermore, when it comes to removing this thing, some light here, you want to pay attention to the removal process, right? So there is a reverse torque process for removing the cylinder head. It has to be done evenly because the head is aluminum, and if you don't loosen it evenly in the proper sequence, you risk warping the head. We want to avoid that. So see here, loosen the bolts in the proper sequence as shown. Loosen each bolt half of a turn at a time. After all of the bolts are fully loosened, then you remove them. So we're going to follow the sequence and do a half turn at a time. It's going to take a little bit, but you got to do it right, guys. Otherwise you risk damaging your head. Now another thing you'll notice about this sequence, this is the sequence for removal. Number one starts up here with that little bolt. That's one of the hardest to get to. And you'll notice for the reverse, the process of reinstalling the head, the torque sequence is a little different, right? You start in the middle of the head, 1, 2, blah 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 blah, until you're done. So two different torque sequences. Pay attention to that: removal and reinstallation. Alright, so here's number one, and number two is the little guy right behind it, behind the frame. Again, it's going to take a unique set of 1/4 inch extensions in various combinations. We'll be using the longer one to get to the number 2 bolt, but for now, this rig here is going to work for the first. Alright, just loosen. Remember, it mentions half turns all through all 12 bolts. Alright, it's just loosened. On to number 3. Now as we get on to number 3, you'll see you have to be a little creative because of the tight clearances in here. It's a number 12 socket, by the way. Insert your little extension rig first, and then pop the wrench on like so. These things are very tight, guys. Oh, in fact, fast forward about 5 minutes later, I had to go get the cheater bar, man. See if we can get this one to break. There's the brake. Now number 4 naturally is in the complete opposite corner, down on this end. Now admittedly, the required use of a cheater bar is a little bit concerning because, you know, cheater bar use is fine as long as you have the required clearance to swing one. Okay. Naturally, number 5 will be here in the foreground. I mean, it's really taking tremendous force, guys, to break these bolts loose. What's crazy is the initial break is easy. You can probably hear it on the camera. Once that initial break occurs, it takes a lot of force to continue the break. And just a quick revisit for you guys. We've done 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Number 6 is going to be this bottom corner. Number 7 is located top left of cylinder head under the exhaust cam. Alright, number 8 is second from the right under the intake cam. Number 9 is right above it. Number 10 is bottom left under the intake cam. Number 11 is top middle underneath the exhaust cam. And number 12, bottom middle under the intake cam. Alright, and all 12 bolts are loosened. Now we go in the sequence 1 through 12 until all the bolts are out, cylinder head comes off. Now as I pull the 12th and final head bolt out of the head, I want you guys to see something to pay attention to. When you pull these out, every last one of them comes with a washer. See there? Make sure that washer comes out. And so this makes number 12. There you go. It's all 12 of them, man. I don't know what kind of complication we're going to run into trying to remove this thing. As mentioned earlier, one step we did skip, and I think I'm going to go ahead and do it, is you're supposed to remove the thermostat, thermostat housing. And I can see trying to turn this thing out, come out this way, that's probably going to impact the frame up here. So voila! Okay, that's enough. Well, there she is, guys, in all her glory. The head is officially removed. Now, a major epiphany occurred last night, and it's the most important thing to know. And it's not mentioned in the shop manual. These are the forward engine bolts, the engine mounts. Come to find out, the cylinder head is actually part of the entire motorcycle stress member, which, you know, I knew that going in. It just never occurred to me that the forward mount is the cylinder head while the rear mount is the block. And it's like that on this side as well. Now, what you'll find is that if you don't remove the forward mounts on each side, the cylinder head is still permanently affixed as a stress member of the overall frame, thereby preventing you from pulling the damn thing out.
I actually had a co-worker, good buddy of mine, came over last night as a fresh set of eyes, and he discovered that, you know, we kind of beat on it a little bit, and he was very surprised that it wasn't even budging. And he got to looking closer, and sure enough, his eye was able to spot that the engine bolts, the actual engine mounts, are holding the cylinder head on both sides. So it's not just a matter of removing all 12 bolts from inside and perimeter. You also have to pull the engine mounts on each side for the cylinder head to come out. So real quick, let's look at what we're working with. We have cylinder number 4 is filthy. Again, we do know that our valve seal, or seals 1 or 2 on the exhaust side of number 4 is failed, which is our smoking problem on startup. Looks like regular carbon scoring on 1. You can see 2 and 3 down there. They don't look terrible. I am going to spray some Berryman's B12 Chem Tool in there though. This came recommended by a couple of you guys in the comments section of my last video, and so I grabbed some from O'Reilly's. We're going to soak the tops of the pistons in this, and then kind of scrub at them a little bit with a brass brush. You want to use soft materials on aluminum, and you can't go wrong with a brass brush on aluminum surfaces. So take a look at the cylinder head. We're going to get inside. I'll tell you what, let's flip it up. So looking at the underneath on the valve side, here's our old gasket, by the way. Look at cylinder number 4. It's pretty filthy, right? There's your exhaust valves, your intake valves, and judging by the looks of the inside of number 4, it is our exhaust valve seals that have failed. The exhaust seals. See in there? I think, and as a matter of fact, it is specifically the one on the bottom. The one on this side. It is the one that is the most filthy. And I think what happened is when we made that high mileage adjustment with the valve shim, it readjusted where the carbon deposits were on the valve itself, on the valve stem. I don't know who is beating on what and why, and I apologize for that. Anyways, I imagine that the carbon deposits on that valve stem got readjusted by, you know, hundredths of a millimeter, and that resulted in allowing oil past that old valve seal. So that's the only way I can possibly explain what went wrong with this one seal. So that's the hypothesis anyways, and we're going to, again, rule out all other possibilities by changing out all 7 seals on all 7 adjusted valves. Alright, so here's the end product of about, I don't know, maybe 25-30 minutes worth of cleaning with Berryman's B12 Chem Tool. And I will go ahead and vouch for this stuff, man. It is obviously very effective. It's not spotless. In fact, of course, we still have carbon just a bit around the actual valve faces, but the mating surface is very clean. So I'm happy with that. Now, so let's discuss again our plan of attack. This is the original worksheet from the valve adjustment back in, I think, August 2020. We had to make 7 adjustments. Our culprit through our little investigation here is a valve seal on cylinder 4 on the exhaust side. Now what I find interesting, and we'll take a closer look in a second, is this is the one I adjusted, but that valve stem, when viewing through the exhaust port, is clean. This guy is the one that's filthy, and I don't know how to explain that because we didn't touch this one. So I don't know, I may sacrifice one of these that required a very small adjustment, probably this guy or this guy. The reason being is because the intake side is very unlikely to have any kind of a leak, just because the main, this might not make any sense and I might be completely wrong in my explanation, but the main stuff, so to speak, that's going on in the combustion process is out the exhaust side. So I think intake side adjustments, sacrificing the replacement of one of these valve seals just to go ahead and reseal both of these on number 4's exhaust side, I think that's acceptable, and I think that's what I'm going to do. I only bought 7 seals, guys, so I'm kind of out of options as far as improvising here. So without drawing this out any longer, we do have to get this bike back together, man. It's been a little bit of time now, so I will sacrifice one of these, yet to be determined. I'll think about it for a little while and sort that out, but we'll sacrifice one of these so that we can be sure and replace this guy. Now I figure we'll go ahead and attack the main culprit, which is this guy right here, because it's a known issue, and I'm essentially going to be repeating this process 7 times over, which is unnecessary to actually demonstrate to you guys. The point here is that we successfully remove one so that you can see how it's done, and I'll probably finish the rest of them off camera and then come back to the next steps in our project. But anyways, so this process is fairly straightforward. The valve and valve spring assembly, it consists of, you know, a seat, your spring, the seal, retainers, right, and that's your lifter and your shim. Some important things to consider. Obviously it tells you if you're going to disassemble this, you need to replace the valve seal. That's a given. But you see here, that is assembly lube. They want assembly lube on the new valve seal. Makes sense. So we'll be sure and do that. Now, looking at this tool, it's a simple C-clamp sort of design, so to speak. Your threads go in the top and bottom, makes a pinch point. The C shape will run like so, and pinch. One thing, or pinch and compress the spring, right? So you can get the retainers out and all that stuff, the keepers. Now, one thing that I did read in the reviews on this thing is the fact that this part here is what is going to put pressure on the valve, on the face of the valve. That has been known to scratch the valve face, or this end, or no, it's one of these. That's another thing we got to figure out, right, when we put this little rig together. But anyways, my makeshift remedy, we'll give it a shot, is going to be to fold up one of these shop towels in a small square and place it on the valve, and then allow this to compress onto the shop towel instead of directly onto the metal, and that should prevent any kind of weird scrapes and scratches from going on. So anyways, let's put this thing together. We will be using the number 23mm adapter, right? So it's got different automotive applications. 30mm like a car, right, working on your V8, and it goes all the way down to like a Briggs, right, lawnmower motors. Anyways, this is how this is going to sit on here, like so, and the entire rig and the C-clamp will compress it, right? Here we go. Alright, so here's our rig built and in place with just slight tension, just to keep it still for demonstration. There you can see my plan of preventing scratching of the valve face with that shop towel. It seems to be working fine. No big deal. There you can see how the adapter smashes down on the valve spring. But so we're going to turn and compress. Then we're going to use our magnet to get the what I believe are called the keepers out of there. So there you go, man. That's what it looks like. I did also add wood for some extra height there. Looked like it was required, so bam, let's go. One. Alright, we just got one. Looks like we got to compress a little bit more to get the other. Alright, there it is. So we've got both keepers. Now we will back it out and it'll decompress the spring, and the entire valve spring assembly can be removed. Also, don't put your face right over this operation. You don't ever know what kind of slippage is going to occur, and you'll have a valve spring come meet you right in your teeth. Yep. Surprisingly, it didn't require very much compression to release those keepers. There you can see just how well this idea worked. There's actually the numbers, I guess it's S2, letter and number S2 imprinted on the which that's what's embossed on the valve face, and you can see it imprinted the shop towel, so this works very effectively. Alright, so everything will go back in the same order, obviously. The shop manual does mention that when it comes to the valve spring, the larger gap, see how there's a difference? That smaller rounding of spring goes on the bottom, the larger openings go up top. So you can bear that in mind at all times. Alright, so this valve is ready to come out. And you can actually observe that it has begun to slide out. This one is the one that's really filthy. Alright, look at this. Extreme carbon buildup. Just extreme. That's from, yeah, let's put it in the sunlight. Let's get a good look at this, guys. So you can see all over this thing where the oil has been burning in the combustion process. We're gonna have to clean this up real good. Put a new valve seal in there and rock and roll. Also, on the topic of cleaning, another point of attacking cylinder 4 first is because we're gonna have to clean that up too, guys. You know, there's it's not just about the mating surface. We have bad oil burn and carbon buildup inside the exhaust port. We're gonna put our Berrymans on the case, and I won't film that. You guys don't want to be bothered with that, but I'm just gonna use a brass bristle brush like I did for the face, for the mating surface, and I'm just gonna scrub the hell out of it while it soaks with Berrymans, and we'll get that as clean as we possibly can. But before we even bother with all that, we've got to get that valve seal out. And for like $1 and some change, I got this tiny little needle nose from Hobo Freight. I have no idea how difficult this is going to be, guys. This is a first time thing for me. Let's just see what happens. I don't actually know how stuck on these things are. Might need 2 hands to do this. I think I'm gonna need 2 hands to do this. It wiggles. It does wiggle. Okay, let me get this thing out. I had to switch it up, guys. Had this old little this old set of plier. That needle nose, it just doesn't grab appropriately around the metal portion of the seal, and you see what it did to it. See how it marred it up? I mean, it's going in the trash anyways, it doesn't matter, but these little pliers will certainly be the ones I use for the rest of them. See, it actually smushed it. Damn it. So, getting the sunlight here. Unfortunately, we smushed it, so we can't really observe obvious failure, I guess, since it's smushed. But I really don't know if you guys can see, and I don't know if I did that. I may have done that. The rubber part looks a little chewed up though. I don't know that I did do that. That could be the source of our failure. And I know those spots are associated directly with the marring on the metal. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's being replaced. It's just, you know, you don't tear into these engines every day, guys, you know, if you're not a mechanic. So, like, I try and absorb and take in as much as I can and learn as much as I can. And of course, this is why I do this for you guys as well. Nobody else does this on the FZ6R, you know. It doesn't matter. We're going to be replacing this. You can see down in there the valve seat. That's a little disc that's supposed to come out. See? I suppose it's not hurting anything to just stay in there. Screw it. One less thing to have to pop back in there, right? Of course, if it falls out while we're doing our cleaning operation, that's going to be bad. Anyways, we've got to get this exhaust port clean, and we'll come back and insert the new valve seal with our Motion Pro tool, which we haven't really even busted out of the packaging yet. Kind of funny, I went inside and got a little container to soak this valve in, Berryman's in there like that, and I had just set it down and I heard a smack sound. I was like, what in the hell was that? And I'm like, what was that noise? Sure enough, it was the valve seat or the valve spring seat we were just talking about. Decided it was gonna plop right out of there. So that takes care of that. Also, just full transparency here, guys. I found this just laying there. It's rubber. What the hell?